Let me tell you a story, a true story, the true story of how lying was invented. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, somewhere in Africa, a group of 10 Homo sapiens who were gay were arguing about who stole the last apple. The thief decided that they're not going to tell the truth and said, "I didn't do it! It's John! I saw it!" This joke is funny because John is not a name native to Africa. John said, "But I didn't do it!" So another person asked, "Wait, who did?" But because John didn't know how to lie, he said he didn't know. He told the truth. And as such, John was beaten with a dildo. I'm sorry, the teleprompter actually said stick, which when you think about it, is just a brown dildo. But now, John is exiled from the group. The person who invented lying just got a free apple. The thief also died shortly afterwards from a leopard that ate their face, but that's another story. The end. And that was the true story of how lying was invented. Of course, that's not true. I lied. Apples aren't native to Africa. They are native to the stars. That's a joke for my African botanist viewer. Singular, just that one person in the whole world. But the point of that short story was to convey a dense amount of information in a short amount of time, because the real story of how lies and deception evolved through millions of years, from the earliest fish and planktons all the way to humans as a means to increase chances of survival and abundance, is far more complicated and boring to explain. And that's boring to certain people. I would have to talk about the color adaptations of plants and lie detectors animals evolved to cope, until we eventually talk about the concept of civilization and the creation of the idea of ownership. It would be a very boring 5 hours that, while a person like myself will gladly watch, is going to be boring for the vast majority of people. There's a reason why documentaries aren't as popular as movies. Lies are good for making things simple and entertaining, because information is dense, like me. Truth is often complex, and if we don't simplify something, most people won't have the time or the emotional bandwidth to handle it. As much as we like to think otherwise, we are a species that prefers to think with our emotions. We don't like complex thinking, and nothing is emotionally simpler to grasp than a good lie. For example, it's easier to tell a child that numbers are just a combination of 0 to 9 and that's just how it's always been and it's the best way, instead of the complicated truth that numbers are an imaginary, infinite, immortal construct which should have been base 8 for functionality that stretches out further than the reaches of the universe, bypassing space and time and probably life as we know it, to meet a finite end at the edge of an infinite universe. Or maybe not, depending on what lies at the edge of that universe, which we as humans with our limited lifespan will likely never find out. Which explanation do you think is easier? Which do you think is more practical to learn with? In the video by Hot Bubble Tea, they talk about how the writers for Science Show wrote a simplified explanation of chromosomes as either one of two sexes in order to explain concepts of 50-50 probability to children, likely in hopes that when the more complex reality of chromosomes is explained to the adults, they will understand the concepts and change their minds. The problem comes when that mind rejects the complicated reality in acceptance of the simplified lie, creating a false understanding of the world. Societal construct or gender aside, there are millions of people in the world who are born intersex or have a variety of genetic disorders, meaning the explanation of just two possible sexes coming from chromosomes was just a lie. It's a story to simplify an explanation, one that has been told time and time again because it's easier to explain than the complicated real concept of intersexuality and chromosome genetic disorders. And I know the question on this video is why people lie. But to answer that, we must first answer a few other questions, such as why we believe in the lies in the first place. There are a couple of psychological concepts that we need to understand to truly make sense of this topic. So let's delve right in. All people have a level of suspension of disbelief. It is this suspension of disbelief that allows us to enjoy works of fiction for a very short amount of time while we are reading said fiction, such as the story of the apple thief. We must believe that this second world we've created is possible. It doesn't have to be real, just possible. The problem is the state of disbelief, or what can be commonly known as skepticism, is likely not the norm. Humans are born to suspend disbelief. We are born to trust. As children, we need to trust that our parents are protecting us, that our teachers are educating us, and that the adults have answers for us. We need to believe that that world is possible. Otherwise, we can never learn. It's a biological function. Our minds are more malleable as children, which is why get them while they're young can be such a terrifying phrase. Nobody can be skeptical 100% of the time. That's just not a realistic state for the human brain to exist in. We cannot be constantly on edge, waiting for a lie. It would be an impossible way to live. The right words at the right time, and anyone will lift the suspension. And that's what's happening. Every time we communicate with each other, we're telling a story. And for that moment, especially if we're talking to like a friend, family member, or even a neutral party we have no relations to, we tend to suspend our disbelief. We trust that for that moment, the world they are telling us about is possible. We went shopping the other day. That's a possible world. I won't punch you in the face. That's a possible world. John stole the apple. That's a possible world. These are all suspension of disbelief. I don't know why my voice keeps switching. Now, there are two things that can happen. We can take the time and effort to learn special skills in detection, create laws with complex language, conduct an investigation, and go through the lengthy process of verifying the truth. Or we beat John with a dildo and never have to question reality again. Just trust that we went shopping. Just trust that I won't punch you in your face. Just trust that John stole the apple. The reason people believe in lies is because we don't see the lie. We don't see it because suspension of disbelief means that for a moment, there are no lies. For a moment, there are two truths: the story of the truth and your current truth. And when presented with those options, a person has roughly four choices. Pick A, pick B, mix them up, or reject them all. The problem is, only one of those options moves you closer to reality. Everything else moves you closer to a lie. And 1 out of 4 is some pretty bad odds. But you might be wondering, why would somebody continue to believe in a lie? When John says he didn't steal the apple, why wasn't suspension lifted for him then? Well, remember in the story the group had 10 people? That is an important part to the functionality of a lie. A lie told to one person is a story. A lie told to many creates a community. Most people don't look for the truth. As cool as it might sound to think that humanity naturally is some group of explorers looking to uncover the mysteries of the world, we're not. Humanity overall are sedentary. The only time we explore is likely because of war or to look for places where more of us can stay still forever. Explorers are a minority. They are an outlier. For example, only 1 in 1,000 people work in STEM. In contrast, 1 in 4 people are farmers. There's a reason why agriculture is one of the greatest inventions of civilization. It allowed us to stay in one place. What I'm trying to say is that as humans, we are evolutionarily trained to find community. And truth finding is not one of those things that help in building that. It's kind of a privilege that only some can access. Most people worry about things like the price of gas and whether or not they can make it to work. Saving the world from climate change doesn't matter if you can't get to your job to earn money and not starve. Finding out who stole the apple doesn't really matter if you're already out of food. That's why attempts to find the truth is often done by people who have enough privilege, or in my case, a lack of fucks given, to have to worry about keeping ourselves alive. Do you think I have the ability to make my insane documentaries if I don't have my savings left and have to work a regular 9 to 5? No, I'd fucking die. Subscribe to my Patreon. So what happens is that for most part of life, we then conform. We go with the story of whatever group we are closest to, and we then believe that fervently. Because not believing can get you ostracized from that group. See, religion at all. Right or wrong at this point doesn't really matter. Facts or logic doesn't really matter. Truth is whatever the group believes. And the more people in a group believes, the harder it gets to challenge. If just one person believes John stole the apple, that effect can snowball to the other 8. Because if you don't, you might end up like John. You'll be excommunicated and beaten with a dildo, cussed out and be pariahs of the group, lowering your chances of survival. You have to conform to the group's story. If someone says John is a thief, then John is a thief. That truth becomes reality. And unlike proving a reality which requires you to experiment and demonstrate, a lie only requires one to make stuff up. John, prove that you didn't steal the apple. He can't. He needs time. He needs evidence. But how do you accuse his guilt? I saw him. I swear, he was rummaging through our basket last night. He was holding a dildo as well, probably to use as a weapon. We should beat him with it. Beat him off. A fast, easy lie. Arguing doesn't work. You have to calmly, logically, slowly explain things to others like children with full knowledge and understanding of what you're talking about over and over again in order to override someone's firm beliefs in a lie. You cannot appeal to morality or emotion, even if someone is appealing to their morality or emotion. You cannot call out someone's lie, even if they are lying right to your face. You can only calmly, slowly, and meticulously disseminate the truth. And any teacher can tell you, that's really fucking hard. At this point, you might be rightfully demoralized. It seems that the search for truth and objective reality is completely undermined by all these natural barriers that help support lies. The instinct to believe, the human need for community, and how lies can be built from thin air. The fact that any level of science, the existence of objective truth, and being good and kind in general can seem like kind of a miracle. Like, evolutionarily speaking, it doesn't seem to be a very effective way to live. But that's the thing, it's not really a miracle. Far from it. Because I lie. The real question of this video is not why we believe in lies, but why do we believe in truths? The thing about facts is that as long as they exist, they can always come back in the same form, because there's only one of them, while each lie can only be told once. And I know there are some places in the world backsliding into misinformation right now, and hearing me say that must suck. There's no sugarcoating it. But the truth can come back. I swear it. I don't have a lot of expertise in life, but the one that I do have is about storytelling. Buy my books, please. And because of that, I can confidently tell you this. A story, or a lie if you will, if you ask two completely different strangers in different places to tell it, they can't tell them the same way twice. There are a dozen different competing theories for the flat earth over the centuries, but only one for the round earth. It's one that's complicated and hard to understand, but it is just one singular, cohesive collection of knowledge no matter where you are. And unlike lies, which can only continue to exist if the same one is being told continuously and still varies from region to region somehow, if any part of round earth is proven wrong, that part is removed and replaced with the new. And at that point, there will still be just that one theory that, as far as we know, is the real truth across the entire universe. And anyone with the right understanding can repeat that information. The world can end, language disappears, and sentient life re-evolve from scratch into an entirely new species. And this species, hundreds of thousands of years in the future, will come to the exact same conclusion. Once you have fully questioned a piece of information, internalized it, and truly understand how it functions and why it works, it's very difficult to then lose it again. And when you discover a new fact, it gets added to that umbrella and tested against reality. And because of this longevity, it has a tendency to just stay around. It's harder to discredit ingrained facts than it is to discredit ingrained lies. So how do we fight lies? I would love to say with the truth, but that would be a lie in itself. The complicated answer would be education, not learning stuff, but learning to learn. Maybe shift away from grade-centric, test-centric system, but that's a story for another time. The process of education, regardless of grades, is one of the best bulwarks against believing in misinformation. But the simpler answer is to fight it with a good lie. Fight it with a good story. Yes, we can. Be kind, rewind. We will never surrender. But the story must be based in reality, because once the pane of lies falls apart, if there's no brick to hold up what's inside, it'll still crumble. The reason we believe in truth is the same reason we believe in lies, because while reality is objective, truth and lies are not. We have personal truths. How strong they are does depend on how real they are as well. And how real they are depends on our understanding of the world. So the best way to not fall for lies is to make sure our personal truth is as close to reality as possible. It means learning, it means understanding, it means knowing that to be right, you have to be wrong sometimes. That's why a lot of scientists says, to the best of my scientific knowledge, because they know their knowledge is likely not complete. And if someone is selling you on an absolution, on some factual surety, they're probably lying. Thanks everyone for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon, and a shout out to my VIP Patreon, Ori Ole. Thank you very much. This is my third take of this video. The first time I was sick and I sounded weird, and the second time I messed up my microphone and it sounded weird, so I really hope this time it doesn't sound weird. So this is the first episode in the Why Are People Evil series, and if you have not seen the introduction, maybe go take that a watch. It'll give you some context of what I'm trying to do here. My sister is back and there's a lot of background noise, so if you hear any banging, that's her fault, not mine. Let me know what you think of the series. It's more philosophy than it is information gathering like my usual stuff. So hopefully, it's still entertaining somehow. That's it for today. Again, thanks to my Patreon, patreon.com/Aiden_Ng. I will see you next time. Bye.